It was supposed to be just another warm summer night in the Hollywood Hills. A quiet house on Cielo Drive, soft lights glowing behind glass, a young actress 8.5 months pregnant, waiting for her husband to come home from Europe. By morning, that house would become the most feared address in America. Police officers would walk through a sea of blood and overturned furniture. A body slumped on the lawn, another near the front door. Inside, the woman who had once been photographed in couture gowns and movie studio lighting now lay on the floor. Her life, and the life inside her, cut short in a way too brutal to fully comprehend. Outside, scrawled on the front door in blood, a single word that made the scene feel less like a crime and more like a ritual. Pig. The headlines came fast, and they did not sound real. Movie star Sharon Tate slain in ritualistic killing. 26 years old, a Golden Globe-nominated actress, the luminous face of Valley of the Dolls, the wife of Roman Polanski. 8.5 months pregnant with her first child. All of it gone in a few hours of chaos unleashed by a cult the world barely knew the name of, the Manson Family. The city panicked. In a place that sold dreams for a living, gates got higher, guard dogs appeared on manicured lawns, and suddenly nobody felt safe. Agents told clients not to give out their addresses. Studio executives hired private security. For the first time, Hollywood had to confront an idea it had never really believed in, that its most beautiful, protected people could die like this, in their own homes, for no reason that made sense. And somewhere beneath all the headlines and courtroom drama, one simple truth was getting lost. Before she became a symbol of horror, Sharon Tate was something else. A young woman who had spent her whole life trying to get in front of the camera. A rising star finally on the edge of everything she had ever wanted. A soon-to-be mother decorating a nursery and circling baby names. This is not just the story of a murder that changed America. It is the story of how Hollywood's brightest angel walked straight into its darkest night, and why, more than 50 years later, the world still cannot look away from what happened on Cielo Drive. Before she became the symbol of one of the darkest nights in Hollywood history, Sharon Tate was something astonishingly simple. A hopeful, radiant young woman who believed her life was just beginning. She was born in Dallas, Texas in 1943, the daughter of an Army intelligence officer whose work moved the family across the world. Sharon grew up in Italy in military bases where American pop culture flowed in through magazines and movie posters. She was shy, soft-spoken, almost unsure of her own beauty. But everyone around her noticed it before she did. By the age of 16, she was already winning local beauty contests without ever trying. Strangers approached her, asking if she had considered modeling. Studio scouts clipped her photos from newspapers. It wasn't ambition that drew Sharon toward Hollywood. It was gravity. Directors, photographers, producers all sensed something in her that she had not yet learned to name. She had a presence that felt effortless, a softness that camera lenses adored, a vulnerability that made her stand out in an era filled with bold, dramatic starlets. Her breakthrough came slowly, piece by piece, bit roles in television, commercial shoots, screen tests that circulated from desk to desk at the big studios. People in the industry began asking the same question: who is this girl? By 1967, she had answered it. Sharon Tate became the face of a new Hollywood, modern, natural, ethereal. Her roles in Eye of the Devil and Valley of the Dolls showcased her ability to move from innocence to heartbreak in a single glance. Critics praised her. Directors requested her by name. But fame wasn't what changed her life. Love did. In 1964, while filming in Europe, she met a young Polish director whose style would redefine Hollywood. Roman Polanski. He was sharp, brilliant, unpredictable. She was gentle, intuitive, a calming force. Together, they became the couple everyone wanted to photograph. The beautiful ingenue and the enigmatic filmmaker. Their marriage in London in 1968 looked like the beginning of a golden era. They bought a home in the Hollywood Hills. They hosted friends, actors, musicians. Sharon glowed in every photograph taken during these years. And the glow only deepened when she became pregnant in 1969. She told friends that this was the happiest she had ever been. She envisioned a future of motherhood and film roles. More than anything, she believed she finally had a life that felt safe, steady, and full of promise. She had no idea that the world she was stepping into, fame, Hollywood, open doors, trusting faces, was being observed by a man who believed he had a right to destroy it, a man whose name she had never heard, a cult leader she had never met, a nightmare she would never escape. By 1968, Sharon Tate had become more than just a rising actress. She was the visual definition of Hollywood's new era, a fresh, effortless beauty, a softness that felt untouched by scandal or ego, a star who seemed to glow, not burn. Magazines adored her. Photographers fought for her time. Fashion houses sent her clothes simply to see her wear them. Casting directors described her as the camera's favorite face. Yet despite all the attention, Sharon remained grounded, almost naive to the power of her own presence. Hollywood at that moment was shifting. The old studio system was collapsing. A younger, bolder generation of filmmakers was taking over. Roman Polanski was one of its leaders, and Sharon became the perfect symbol of that change. Modern, elegant, natural. When they married, the media labeled them Hollywood's new royal couple. Their home on Cielo Drive quickly became a gathering place for actors, musicians, artists, an orbit of creativity that felt electric. The couple was often seen laughing, entertaining guests, or simply sitting together on the patio overlooking Los Angeles. Sharon once told a friend, "I finally feel like my life fits me." When she became pregnant in early 1969, everything intensified. Her joy, her hope, her sense of belonging to something greater than fame. She prepared the nursery herself. She wrote to Polanski while he traveled for work, describing every kick, every doctor's visit, every dream she had for their baby boy. Friends said she glowed like a woman who knew her life was about to become complete, and her career was rising alongside her personal life. She had just finished The 13 Chairs in Italy. She was reading new scripts. Hollywood insiders believed she was on the verge of becoming a major star, the kind who could anchor films on her name alone. Studio executives saw Sharon not just as beautiful, but bankable. This was the peak, the moment just before everything would fracture, the final chapter of a life that seemed to be expanding in every direction. Marriage, motherhood, fame, friendships, a new home, a new era. But worlds that shine the brightest are often the ones that attract the darkest shadows. And while Sharon Tate was preparing for a future she could not wait to meet, another group, hidden far from the lights of Hollywood, was preparing for something entirely different. A plan born from delusion, resentment, and violence. A plan that would lead them to her front door. By the summer of 1969, the Tate-Polanski home on Cielo Drive stood like a beacon above Los Angeles, a symbol of everything glamorous, young, and hopeful about Hollywood. But in the shadows of California's desert communes, a different world was forming. One ruled not by creativity or dreams, but by a man whose philosophy twisted innocence into violence. Charles Manson. Manson was a failed musician, a drifter, a self-proclaimed prophet who believed he was chosen to ignite a race war he called helter-skelter. His followers, Misters Hushfarn, mostly vulnerable young people searching for purpose, obeyed him with frightening devotion. He preached that society was collapsing, that Hollywood elites were the enemy, and that violence was necessary. In his paranoid fantasies, the homes of the rich became targets. And tragically, the house on 150 Cielo Drive, once home to a producer who rejected Manson's music, became symbolic in his mind. Sharon Tate had never met Charles Manson, never crossed paths with his followers, never knew they even existed. Yet her home, her life, and her unborn child would soon be caught in the orbit of a man whose delusions demanded blood. On the night of August 8, 1969, Sharon was at home with three close friends, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Wojciech Frykowski. She was 8.5 months pregnant. Roman Polanski was away in Europe preparing their next film. Earlier that evening, they shared dinner, laughed, talked about future plans. Sharon complained lightly about the summer heat. She asked Jay to help rearrange the pillows so she could sit more comfortably. It was a quiet, peaceful night, the kind that makes the world feel safe. Around midnight, four members of the Manson family crawled up the hill toward the house. They cut the telephone lines, they slipped through the gate, and they entered the property with knives, guns, and an order that would echo through history. Kill everyone in the house. The attack was fast, chaotic, merciless. Neighbors woke to distant screams but assumed it was noise from the hills. Dogs barked and fell silent again. The killers moved room to room with an obedience so cold it seemed inhuman. Sharon pleaded for the life of her unborn child. Impossibly, unthinkably, they refused. By dawn, 5 people were dead. Their bodies lay inside and outside the home. The word pig painted in blood dripped from the front door. When police walked through the scene, even seasoned detectives described it as beyond anything Hollywood could imagine. It was not merely a crime, it was a message. A moment so violent, so senseless, that it shattered the myth of Hollywood's invincibility. And for Sharon Tate, a woman whose life had been defined by grace, kindness, and hope, it was the cruelest ending imaginable. More than 50 years have passed since the night Sharon Tate died, yet her story has never faded. If anything, it has grown sharper, a wound preserved in the collective memory of Hollywood and the millions who still whisper her name. Sharon did not become immortal through scandal or controversy or the usual pathways that celebrities take into legend. She became immortal because the world could not accept the brutality of losing someone so gentle, so luminous, so close to the happiest moment of her life. Her mother, Doris Tate, transformed grief into activism. She fought tirelessly for victims' rights, speaking in courtrooms and legislatures to ensure the voices of families like hers were never ignored again. Sharon's sisters continued that mission for decades, carrying her spirit into every legal battle, every parole hearing, every moment when justice threatened to weaken. Her home on Cielo Drive, the place where her life ended, became a symbol too powerful to exist. The address was eventually demolished, replaced by another property, another family, another chapter. But the land itself still feels haunted in American culture. It represents the moment innocence slipped away, not just for Hollywood, but for an entire nation. And then there is the legacy of Sharon herself. Not the victim, not the headline, not the tragedy, but the woman. Her friends remember her laugh, soft and shy at first, then bright and unrestrained. Her directors remember her discipline, her surprising instinct for drama and emotion. Her photos, timeless, radiant, continue to circulate across the world, especially among younger generations who never saw her films yet feel drawn to her presence. Hollywood has tried to make sense of her story in documentaries, films, books, interviews, and long-form investigations. None of them fully succeed, because Sharon Tate's legacy is not just a crime, it is a question about vulnerability, fame, innocence, and the thin line between the dream of Hollywood and the darkness that sometimes surrounds it. If she had lived, she would have been a mother. She would have become a major star. She would have grown older, wiser, deeper. A woman with decades of stories left to tell. Instead, she became something different. The eternal angel of Hollywood, frozen in time, forever 26, forever glowing, forever unfinished. And that is why the world still searches for her, still mourns her, still asks what truly happened on that night. Sharon Tate represents not just a life lost, but a life interrupted, a promise that was never allowed to bloom, a symbol of beauty and innocence, taken in a nightmare that Hollywood and the world will never forget.